Question 1. The audit findings indicate that the current incident response plan lacks a standardized framework for coordinating with external emergency services during large-scale events, potentially leading to fragmented efforts and delayed critical actions. As the Certified Security Director, CSD, what is the most effective approach to optimize the incident response process in alignment with established best practices for emergency management? Option A. Prioritize the immediate deployment of all available internal security personnel to secure the perimeter and control access, deferring any formal coordination with external agencies until the immediate internal threat is neutralized. Option B. Establish a decentralized communication network where each responding agency operates autonomously, sharing information on an as-needed basis through informal channels to maintain operational flexibility. Option C. Develop a detailed internal escalation protocol that outlines how the security team will manage the incident independently, with provisions for requesting external assistance only after all internal resources are exhausted. Option D. Implement a unified command structure, designating a single incident commander responsible for overall strategic direction and coordinating the efforts of all responding agencies, ensuring clear communication channels and defined roles within the Incident Command System, ICS. The correct answer is D. Implement a unified command structure, designating a single incident commander responsible for overall strategic direction and coordinating the efforts of all responding agencies, ensuring clear communication channels and defined roles within the Incident Command System, ICS. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a certified security director, CSD, to move beyond routine security operations and implement a structured, multi-agency response framework during a critical incident. The challenge lies in ensuring seamless coordination, clear communication, and efficient resource allocation under pressure, while adhering to established protocols that may involve external agencies. The CSD must demonstrate leadership in a dynamic environment, balancing immediate tactical needs with strategic oversight, and ensuring accountability within the Incident Command System, ICS, structure. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves establishing a unified command structure where all responding agencies have a clear role and reporting line, facilitated by a designated incident commander. This aligns directly with the core principles of ICS, which emphasizes a standardized, on-scene, all-hazard incident management concept. This approach ensures that information flows effectively, resources are deployed logically, and objectives are met collaboratively, thereby maximizing the efficiency and effectiveness of the emergency response. This is ethically sound as it prioritizes life safety, incident stabilization, and property preservation through organized and coordinated action, as implicitly required by professional security management standards and the need for public safety. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a purely hierarchical, single-agency command structure without integrating external responders would fail to leverage the collective resources and expertise available, leading to potential duplication of effort, communication breakdowns, and delayed response times. This violates the collaborative spirit and operational efficiency that ICS is designed to achieve. Adopting a decentralized, ad hoc communication network without a central command point would result in confusion, conflicting orders, and a lack of situational awareness. This undermines the fundamental ICS principle of clear command and control, increasing the risk of operational errors and compromising responder safety. Focusing solely on internal security protocols without considering the broader incident management framework and the roles of other emergency services would create a siloed response. This neglects the interconnectedness of emergency management and the need for a unified approach to effectively mitigate the incident's impact. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the incident's scope and potential impact. They should then immediately activate the relevant ICS framework, identifying the need for a unified command if multiple agencies are involved. Establishing clear communication channels, defining roles and responsibilities, and ensuring a common operating picture are paramount. This systematic approach, grounded in established incident management principles, allows for a more organized, efficient, and effective response, minimizing chaos and maximizing positive outcomes. Question 2. Investigation of a proposed security technology upgrade reveals that the vendor's presentation heavily emphasizes cutting-edge features and industry buzzwords, with limited data on how it specifically mitigates the organization's identified critical risks. The security director must decide how to proceed with budget allocation for this upgrade. Option A. Allocate budget based on the vendor's persuasive demonstration and the perceived technological advancement, assuming it will inherently improve the organization's security posture. Option B. Conduct a thorough risk assessment to determine if the proposed technology directly addresses the organization's highest priority risks and provides a demonstrable return on investment in terms of risk reduction before allocating budget. Option C. Allocate a portion of the budget to the vendor's proposed upgrade, but only after confirming that other departments have received their requested security funding to maintain internal political balance. Option D. Prioritize the upgrade based on the loudest departmental request for new security tools, regardless of a formal risk assessment or strategic alignment. Correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough risk assessment to determine if the proposed technology directly addresses the organization's highest priority risks and provides a demonstrable return on investment in terms of risk reduction before allocating budget. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for security directors, balancing competing demands for limited resources while ensuring compliance with evolving regulatory requirements and maintaining operational effectiveness. The pressure to demonstrate ROI for security investments, coupled with the need to adapt to new threats and technological advancements, creates a complex decision-making environment. The director must not only understand the technical aspects of security, but also possess strong financial acumen, strategic planning skills, and the ability to navigate organizational politics. The challenge lies in making a defensible decision that aligns with both immediate operational needs and long-term strategic security objectives, all within a defined budget and regulatory framework. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment and alignment with strategic security objectives. This means identifying critical assets and vulnerabilities, prioritizing threats based on their potential impact and likelihood, and then allocating budget and resources to address the highest risks. This approach is justified by regulatory frameworks that mandate a risk-based approach to security, e.g., NIST Cybersecurity Framework, ISO 27001, or specific industry regulations like HIPAA for healthcare or PCI DSS for payment card data, depending on the CSD exam's specified jurisdiction. Ethically, it demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to protecting the organization's assets and stakeholders. By focusing on risk reduction, the director ensures that investments are made where they will have the greatest impact, thereby maximizing the effectiveness of the security program and satisfying regulatory compliance requirements. Incorrect approaches analysis. Prioritizing solely based on vendor sales pitches or the perceived trendiness of a technology is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Regulatory frameworks emphasize a risk-based, not a marketing-driven, approach. Relying on vendor hype without independent validation or a clear understanding of how the technology addresses specific organizational risks can lead to misallocated resources, ineffective security controls, and potential noncompliance with regulations that require demonstrable risk mitigation. This approach also fails to meet the ethical obligation of prudent financial management and responsible stewardship of organizational assets. Allocating budget based on the loudest departmental request or political influence, without a systematic evaluation of security needs or risks, is also a critical failure. This approach ignores the fundamental principles of security program management, which are rooted in risk assessment and strategic alignment. It can result in underfunding critical areas while overspending on less impactful initiatives, leaving the organization exposed to significant threats. This is a direct contravention of regulatory requirements that mandate a structured and objective approach to security investment, and a breach of ethical responsibility to manage resources effectively for the benefit of the entire organization. Professional reasoning. Security directors should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with a thorough risk assessment. This involves identifying assets, threats, vulnerabilities, and potential impacts. Following this, the director should align security initiatives with the organization's overall strategic objectives and regulatory obligations. Budget allocation and resource deployment should then be prioritized based on the identified risks and their potential impact, ensuring that the most critical areas receive adequate attention. This systematic, risk-informed approach ensures that security investments are both effective and compliant, demonstrating professional competence and ethical responsibility. Regular review and adaptation of the security program based on evolving threats and business needs are also crucial components of this framework. Question 3. Process analysis reveals that a new corporate facility is being planned, and the initial security budget allocated is significantly lower than the preliminary risk assessment suggests is necessary for comprehensive site security design, perimeter security, building security, and environmental design. As the Certified Security Director, CSD, you must propose a security strategy that balances risk mitigation with the available financial resources. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional ethical obligations for a CSD? Option A. Advocate for a budget increase by presenting a detailed report outlining the potential financial and reputational consequences of inadequate security, referencing specific regulatory mandates for the industry, and proposing a phased implementation of security measures if the full budget cannot be immediately secured. Option B. Focus solely on cost-effective perimeter fencing and basic access control at main entrances, assuming that the majority of threats will be deterred by the presence of a corporate presence and that internal security protocols will manage any breaches. Option C. Implement a layered security approach that prioritizes critical asset protection through a combination of enhanced perimeter controls, strategic access points with robust authentication, and integrated surveillance, while leveraging environmental design principles to deter and detect threats, accepting a higher residual risk for less critical areas. Option D. Invest in the most advanced technological surveillance systems available, assuming that comprehensive monitoring will compensate for any deficiencies in physical barriers or environmental design. The correct answer is C. Implement a layered security approach that prioritizes critical asset protection through a combination of enhanced perimeter controls, strategic access points with robust authentication, and integrated surveillance, while leveraging environmental design principles to deter and detect threats, accepting a higher residual risk for less critical areas. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between operational efficiency and robust security design, particularly when faced with budget constraints. A certified security director, CSD, must balance the need for comprehensive site security with the practicalities of implementation and ongoing maintenance, all while adhering to regulatory frameworks. The decision-making process requires a deep understanding of risk assessment, threat modeling, and the specific legal and ethical obligations governing physical security in the designated jurisdiction. The correct approach involves a layered security strategy that integrates physical barriers, surveillance, access control, and environmental design principles, prioritizing critical assets in high-risk areas. This approach aligns with the fundamental principles of CSD responsibilities, which mandate the protection of personnel, assets, and information through effective and compliant security measures. Specifically, it reflects a proactive stance on security, anticipating potential threats and designing defenses accordingly, rather than a reactive one. Regulatory frameworks for CSDs typically emphasize a risk-based approach, requiring directors to implement controls proportionate to identified threats and vulnerabilities. Ethical considerations also demand that the director acts in the best interest of the organization and its stakeholders by ensuring a secure environment. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction by implementing only basic perimeter fencing and minimal internal access controls fails to adequately address potential threats. This approach is ethically questionable, as it prioritizes financial savings over the safety of individuals and the security of valuable assets, potentially violating duty of care obligations. It also likely contravenes regulatory requirements that mandate a certain standard of security based on the nature of the organization's operations and the assets it protects. Another incorrect approach that relies heavily on technology without considering the human element or the physical environment is also flawed. While advanced technology can enhance security, it is not a panacea. Over-reliance on technology without adequate physical barriers or trained personnel can create vulnerabilities. For example, sophisticated surveillance systems are less effective if the physical layout of the site allows for easy circumvention, or if there are blind spots not accounted for in the environmental design. This approach may also fail to meet regulatory standards that require a holistic security posture, encompassing both technological and physical controls. A third incorrect approach that neglects the environmental design aspects, such as poor lighting, inadequate landscaping that provides concealment, or building layouts that create inherent security weaknesses, is also professionally unacceptable. Environmental design is a critical component of physical security, influencing threat perception and deterrence. Failing to integrate these elements means the security system is incomplete and potentially ineffective, leading to regulatory noncompliance and ethical breaches related to negligence. The professional decision-making process for a CSD in such a situation should involve a thorough risk assessment, identifying critical assets and potential threats. This should be followed by a threat modeling exercise to understand how threats might manifest. Based on this analysis, a layered security strategy should be developed, prioritizing controls that offer the greatest protection for the identified risks. This strategy must then be evaluated against the organization's budget and operational needs, seeking the most effective and compliant solutions. Continuous review and adaptation of the security design are also essential to maintain its efficacy. Question 4. The control framework reveals a moderate likelihood of a specific data exfiltration vulnerability within a critical business application. The potential impact of this vulnerability, if exploited, would result in significant financial loss and reputational damage, but not existential threat to the organization. The cost of completely redesigning the application to eliminate the vulnerability is prohibitively high, and the likelihood of a successful exploit is not so imminent as to warrant immediate cessation of the application's use. Which of the following risk mitigation strategies is the most appropriate initial response for a certified security director to recommend and implement? Option A. Implement enhanced monitoring and intrusion detection systems, along with targeted security awareness training for personnel handling sensitive data within the application. Option B. Immediately halt all operations utilizing the affected business application until a complete redesign can be completed. Option C. Purchase comprehensive cyber insurance to cover potential financial losses and reputational damage. Option D. Accept the risk, documenting the potential impact and likelihood without implementing further controls. The correct answer is A. Implement enhanced monitoring and intrusion detection systems, along with targeted security awareness training for personnel handling sensitive data within the application. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of risk management principles within the specific regulatory context of the Certified Security Director (CSD) exam, which implies a focus on established security governance and compliance frameworks. The challenge lies in selecting the most appropriate risk mitigation strategy when faced with a significant, but not catastrophic, potential security vulnerability. A hasty or misapplied strategy can lead to inefficient resource allocation, increased residual risk, or non-compliance with regulatory expectations for due diligence. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the identified vulnerability, its potential impact, and the likelihood of its occurrence. This leads to a decision that balances risk reduction with cost-effectiveness and operational feasibility. Specifically, risk reduction, which entails implementing controls to decrease the likelihood or impact of the vulnerability, is often the most appropriate strategy when a vulnerability is significant enough to warrant action, but not so severe as to necessitate complete avoidance or transfer. This aligns with the CSD's responsibility to proactively manage security risks and maintain an acceptable risk posture, often guided by frameworks that emphasize layered security and continuous improvement. Regulatory expectations for security directors typically mandate a proactive and systematic approach to risk management, favoring strategies that demonstrably lower risk exposure without undue burden. An incorrect approach would be to simply accept the risk without adequate justification. This fails to meet the professional obligation to protect assets and information, potentially violating due diligence requirements and exposing the organization to unacceptable levels of harm. It suggests a lack of proactive risk management and could be viewed as negligence if a breach occurs. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to transfer the risk through insurance without first implementing reasonable mitigation measures. While insurance can be a component of risk management, it is generally not a substitute for internal controls and risk reduction efforts. Regulators and auditors often view reliance solely on insurance as a failure to adequately manage inherent risks. Furthermore, attempting to avoid the risk by discontinuing the affected service or process might be an overreaction if the vulnerability can be effectively managed through reduction strategies, leading to unnecessary operational disruption and cost. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment, including identifying the asset, the threat, the vulnerability, and the potential impact. This should be followed by an evaluation of various mitigation strategies, considering their effectiveness, cost, feasibility, and alignment with organizational objectives and regulatory requirements. The chosen strategy should be documented, implemented, and regularly reviewed to ensure its continued efficacy. Question 5. When evaluating the effectiveness of security controls within a critical operational department and discovering significant, potentially embarrassing, but non-critical compliance gaps that could lead to departmental restructuring if fully disclosed, what is the most ethically and professionally sound approach for a certified security director, CSD, to take? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive audit, meticulously documenting all identified control deficiencies and areas for improvement, and report these findings objectively to relevant stakeholders, including recommendations for remediation, while adhering strictly to the CSD's professional code of conduct regarding integrity and accuracy. Option B. Focus the audit report on minor, easily rectifiable issues to avoid causing undue disruption and potential negative repercussions for the audited department, thereby maintaining departmental harmony and minimizing immediate administrative burden. Option C. Omit or significantly downplay the reporting of the non-critical compliance gaps to protect the audited department from severe scrutiny and potential negative consequences, prioritizing departmental relationships over complete disclosure. Option D. Exaggerate the severity of minor control weaknesses to highlight the need for immediate and substantial security upgrades, creating a sense of urgency that might lead to increased security investment, even if it means misrepresenting the overall security posture. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive audit, meticulously documenting all identified control deficiencies and areas for improvement, and report these findings objectively to relevant stakeholders, including recommendations for remediation, while adhering strictly to the CSD's professional code of conduct regarding integrity and accuracy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the Certified Security Director, CSD, is tasked with conducting an objective security audit while simultaneously being aware of potential negative repercussions for the department being audited. The pressure to deliver findings that are both accurate and politically palatable creates an ethical tightrope. The CSD must balance the duty to uphold security standards and regulatory compliance with the need to maintain professional relationships and avoid undue alarm or damage to departmental morale. Careful judgment is required to ensure the audit's integrity is not compromised by external pressures or personal biases. The correct approach involves conducting a thorough, evidence-based audit that objectively identifies all significant security control deficiencies and areas for improvement, regardless of the potential impact on the audited department. This approach prioritizes the CSD's professional responsibility to ensure the organization's security posture is robust and compliant with relevant regulations. Specifically, under the Certified Security Director, CSD framework, the emphasis is on maintaining the highest standards of integrity and objectivity in security assessments. This aligns with the ethical obligations of a security professional to report findings accurately and without bias, ensuring that risks are properly identified and mitigated to protect the organization's assets and reputation. An incorrect approach would be to downplay or omit findings that might cause significant embarrassment or lead to severe consequences for the audited department, even if those findings represent genuine security risks. This failure to report critical issues violates the CSD's duty to provide an accurate assessment of the security control environment. It also undermines the purpose of the audit, which is to identify and rectify vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. Such an omission could lead to regulatory noncompliance and increased organizational risk, potentially resulting in significant financial penalties or reputational damage. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on minor, easily fixable issues while ignoring systemic or deeply ingrained problems. This superficial assessment fails to address the root causes of security weaknesses and provides a false sense of security. It neglects the CSD's responsibility to conduct a comprehensive evaluation that identifies all material risks, not just those that are convenient to report. A third incorrect approach involves exaggerating minor issues to create a sense of urgency or to justify the audit's existence, potentially leading to misallocation of resources and unnecessary alarm. This deviates from the principle of objective reporting and can erode trust in the audit process and the CSD's judgment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the audit's objectives, a commitment to objective data collection and analysis, and a structured reporting mechanism that prioritizes factual accuracy. The CSD should rely on established audit methodologies and frameworks, ensuring that all findings are supported by verifiable evidence. When communicating findings, the CSD should adopt a constructive and professional tone, focusing on solutions and mitigation strategies rather than solely on blame. This approach fosters a culture of continuous improvement and ensures that security remains a priority without creating undue friction. Question 6. Cost-benefit analysis shows that investing in a comprehensive, regularly tested incident response plan with defined roles, communication protocols, and recovery procedures is a prudent security investment. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory expectations and professional best practices for developing and implementing such a plan? Option A. Implementing a plan that is based on a generic template with minimal customization and no scheduled testing or review cycles. Option B. Creating a plan that focuses on immediate public notification upon any suspected security event, with detailed response procedures to be developed post-notification. Option C. Establishing a structured risk-based incident response plan that includes detailed procedures for identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and post-incident analysis, supported by regular training and tabletop exercises. Option D. Developing a plan that prioritizes technical detection capabilities and assumes internal IT staff will improvise response actions as incidents unfold. The correct answer is D. Developing a plan that prioritizes technical detection capabilities and assumes internal IT staff will improvise response actions as incidents unfold. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because developing an effective incident response plan, ERP, requires balancing proactive security measures with reactive capabilities, all while adhering to specific regulatory mandates. The Certified Security Director, CSD, must not only understand technical vulnerabilities, but also the legal and ethical obligations surrounding data protection and incident notification. The challenge lies in creating a plan that is comprehensive, actionable, and compliant without being overly burdensome or cost-prohibitive. Careful judgment is required to prioritize threats, allocate resources, and define clear roles and responsibilities. The correct approach involves a structured, risk-based methodology that aligns with established cybersecurity frameworks and regulatory requirements. This approach prioritizes identifying critical assets, assessing potential threats and vulnerabilities, and developing specific, tested procedures for detection, containment, eradication, and recovery. It also emphasizes clear communication protocols, defined roles, and regular review and updates to the plan. This aligns with the principles of due diligence and reasonable security practices mandated by regulations such as the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, often referenced in US-based CSD contexts, and the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, if applicable to the organization's data processing activities. These frameworks and regulations underscore the importance of a documented, tested, and regularly updated IRP to mitigate harm and ensure timely and appropriate responses to security incidents. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on technical detection without clear response procedures fails to meet regulatory expectations for a complete incident response capability. It neglects the crucial steps of containment, eradication, and recovery, leaving the organization vulnerable to prolonged damage and potential data breaches. This oversight can lead to significant financial penalties and reputational damage, as regulators expect a holistic approach to incident management. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes rapid notification over thorough investigation and containment is also problematic. While timely notification is often a regulatory requirement, rushing this process without understanding the scope and impact of the incident can lead to premature or inaccurate disclosures, potentially exacerbating the situation and undermining trust. Regulations often require notification asterisk after asterisk and assessment of the breach's impact. Finally, an approach that relies on an outdated or untested plan is fundamentally flawed. Regulations and best practices emphasize the need for regular testing and updating of IRPs to ensure their effectiveness against evolving threats and organizational changes. A static plan is unlikely to be adequate when an incident occurs, leading to confusion, delays, and ineffective response, which can have severe legal and operational consequences. The professional reasoning process for CSD in this situation should involve 1. Understanding the organization's specific threat landscape and risk appetite. 2. Identifying all applicable regulatory requirements related to incident response and data breach notification. 3. Developing a phased IRP that covers preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and post-incident activities. 4. Establishing clear roles, responsibilities, and communication channels. 5. Implementing a robust testing and training program for the IRP. 6. Regularly reviewing and updating the IRP based on test results, lessons learned, and changes in the threat landscape or regulatory environment. Question 7. Analysis of the current data handling procedures within a financial services firm reveals a potential gap in compliance with the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, concerning the storage and processing of customer financial data. The Chief Technology Officer, CTO, has proposed streamlining data storage by consolidating all customer information into a single, less secure, cloud-based repository to reduce infrastructure costs and improve system accessibility for the sales team. As the Certified Security Director, CSD, which of the following approaches best aligns with legal and regulatory obligations and professional security best practices? Option A. Implement the data consolidation immediately to realize the cost benefits, and then conduct a post-implementation review to identify and rectify any GDPR noncompliance issues. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment, DPIA, to identify specific GDPR risks associated with the proposed data consolidation, and implement enhanced security controls, including robust encryption and access management, to mitigate identified risks before any changes are made. Option C. Proceed with the data consolidation as proposed by the CTO, focusing on the cost savings and improved accessibility, and address any potential data protection issues reactively if they arise. Option D. Rely on the existing security measures, which were deemed adequate for previous data handling practices, and assume they will suffice for the consolidated data repository. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment, DPIA, to identify specific GDPR risks associated with the proposed data consolidation, and implement enhanced security controls, including robust encryption and access management, to mitigate identified risks before any changes are made. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a certified security director, CSD, to balance the operational needs of a company with stringent legal and regulatory obligations concerning data privacy and protection. The CSD must ensure that security measures not only safeguard assets, but also comply with specific legal frameworks, preventing significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and legal repercussions. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting and applying complex regulations to practical security operations, especially when faced with competing priorities. The correct approach involves a proactive and comprehensive review of existing security protocols against the specific requirements of the relevant data protection regulation. This entails identifying all data processing activities, mapping them to the regulation's articles, and implementing or updating controls to ensure compliance. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the legal mandate to protect personal data. For instance, under GDPR, assuming U.S. regulations are not specified, and thus we default to a common, comprehensive framework for such exams. This would involve understanding principles like data minimization, purpose limitation, and the need for lawful basis for processing, as well as implementing technical and organizational measures, TOM, to secure data. A thorough review ensures that the security operations are not just effective in a general sense, but legally sound. thereby mitigating risk and demonstrating due diligence. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on operational efficiency without explicit regulatory alignment is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for legal obligations. For example, implementing a new data collection system that gathers more personal data than strictly necessary for its stated purpose violates the principle of data minimization, a core tenet of most data protection laws. This oversight can lead to non-compliance, as the company may not have a lawful basis for processing the excess data or adequate security measures for it. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction over compliance is also professionally flawed. While budget constraints are real, they cannot justify non-compliance with mandatory legal requirements. Ignoring specific security controls mandated by law, such as encryption for sensitive data in transit or at rest, simply to save money, exposes the organization to significant risks of data breaches and subsequent regulatory penalties. This demonstrates a failure to understand the long-term financial and reputational costs of noncompliance, which far outweigh short-term savings. Finally, an approach that relies on outdated security standards without verifying their current legal applicability is also problematic. Regulations evolve, and what was once compliant may no longer be. A CSD must ensure that the security framework is current and aligns with the latest legal interpretations and mandates. Failing to do so means the organization might be operating under a false sense of security, leaving it vulnerable to legal challenges and penalties. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment that explicitly incorporates legal and regulatory compliance as a primary risk factor. This means 1. Identifying all applicable laws and regulations. 2. Understanding the specific requirements of these regulations as they pertain to the organization's operations and data handling. 3. Conducting a gap analysis between current security practices and regulatory mandates. 4. Prioritizing remediation efforts based on the severity of the regulatory risk and potential impact of noncompliance. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating security policies and procedures to reflect changes in the legal landscape and operational environment. Question 8. Compliance review shows that a critical business application, essential for daily operations and handling sensitive customer data, is running on an outdated operating system with several known, high-severity vulnerabilities that have not been patched due to compatibility issues with existing hardware. What is the most appropriate course of action for the certified security director? Option A. Apply a workaround solution to mask the vulnerabilities without addressing the underlying operating system issues, and inform management that the immediate risk has been mitigated. Option B. Immediately develop and implement a phased remediation plan that includes immediate mitigation strategies, a clear timeline for patching or replacing the system, and communication with stakeholders about the risks and proposed solutions. Option C. Propose an immediate shutdown of the critical business application until a secure and compatible operating system can be deployed. Option D. Document the vulnerabilities and the compatibility issues, and defer any remediation efforts until a complete system overhaul can be scheduled in the next fiscal year. The correct answer is B. Immediately develop and implement a phased remediation plan that includes immediate mitigation strategies, a clear timeline for patching or replacing the system, and communication with stakeholders about the risks and proposed solutions. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge for a certified security director, CSD, where a critical business function is reliant on a system with known vulnerabilities. The professional challenge lies in balancing operational continuity with the imperative to maintain a secure environment, especially when faced with resource constraints and competing priorities. A CSD must exercise sound judgment to protect the organization's assets and reputation, while adhering to regulatory requirements and ethical obligations. The correct approach involves a proactive and risk-based strategy. This entails immediately identifying the affected system, assessing the potential impact of the vulnerabilities, and developing a phased remediation plan that prioritizes critical functions and sensitive data. This plan should include immediate mitigation steps, a timeline for patching or replacement, and clear communication with stakeholders regarding the risks and the proposed solutions. This aligns with the fundamental principles of cybersecurity and business continuity, which mandate the protection of information assets and the assurance of operational resilience. Regulatory frameworks, such as those governing data protection and operational resilience, e.g., GDPR, NIS Directive, or relevant U.S. federal regulations depending on the exam's specified jurisdiction, often require organizations to implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to manage risks and ensure business continuity. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the findings or to delay action indefinitely, citing resource limitations without a concrete plan to address the issue. This demonstrates a failure to uphold the CSD's responsibility to protect the organization from cyber threats and could lead to significant financial, reputational, and legal repercussions. It directly contravenes the principles of risk management and due diligence expected of a security leader. Another incorrect approach is to immediately shut down the critical business function without exploring less disruptive mitigation strategies. While security is paramount, a CSD must also consider the business impact and strive for solutions that minimize operational disruption. This approach lacks a balanced perspective and fails to demonstrate effective incident response and business continuity planning, which aim to restore services as quickly and safely as possible. A further incorrect approach is to implement a quick fix without a comprehensive understanding of the vulnerabilities or a long-term remediation strategy. This could introduce new risks or fail to adequately address the underlying issues, leaving the organization exposed. It signifies a lack of thoroughness and a failure to adhere to best practices in incident response and vulnerability management. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a structured risk assessment, followed by the development of a prioritized action plan. This plan should be communicated transparently to relevant stakeholders, including senior management and business unit leaders, to ensure buy-in and resource allocation. The CSD must act as a trusted advisor, providing clear, actionable recommendations grounded in technical expertise and an understanding of the business context, always prioritizing the organization's security posture and regulatory compliance. Question 9. The audit findings indicate a pattern of delayed and incomplete incident reporting, particularly concerning unauthorized access attempts and potential data exfiltration. As the certified security director, which of the following communication and reporting strategies best addresses these findings while adhering to UK regulatory frameworks and CSD guidelines? Option A. Disseminate all incident details, including technical specifics and personal data involved, to all employees via company-wide email to ensure transparency and awareness. Option B. Advise incident response teams to only submit formal reports after a complete forensic investigation has concluded, regardless of the incident's severity or potential impact. Option C. Implement a tiered incident reporting system that mandates immediate notification of all confirmed security incidents to the CISO and legal department, followed by a detailed written report within 24 hours, outlining the nature of the incident, affected systems, potential impact, and initial mitigation steps. Option D. Consolidate all incident reporting into a single monthly report to senior management, focusing only on high-level trends and the overall security posture to avoid unnecessary alarm. The correct answer is C. Implement a tiered incident reporting system that mandates immediate notification of all confirmed security incidents to the CISO and legal department, followed by a detailed written report within 24 hours, outlining the nature of the incident, affected systems, potential impact, and initial mitigation steps. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a recurring theme of delayed and incomplete incident reporting, impacting the organization's ability to respond effectively to security breaches and maintain regulatory compliance. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the Certified Security Director, CSD, to balance the immediate need for accurate and timely information with the complexities of internal communication, stakeholder expectations, and potential legal ramifications. Effective security communication and reporting are paramount, not just for operational efficiency, but also for fulfilling legal and ethical obligations. The correct approach involves establishing a clear, multi-tiered communication protocol for incident reporting that prioritizes immediate notification of critical incidents to relevant stakeholders, followed by detailed, structured reports. This protocol should define reporting timelines, content requirements, and escalation procedures, ensuring that all necessary information is captured and disseminated promptly. This aligns with the principles of good governance and regulatory adherence, which often mandate timely disclosure of security incidents to relevant authorities and stakeholders. For example, under UK regulations, specific reporting obligations exist for data breaches under the Data Protection Act 2018, DPA 2018, and the UK GDPR, requiring notification to the Information Commissioner's Office (ICO) without undue delay. Similarly, financial services firms regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority (FCA) have stringent reporting requirements for operational resilience and security incidents. A robust reporting framework ensures these obligations are met, fostering trust and accountability. An incorrect approach would be to delay reporting until a full investigation is complete, even for significant incidents. This fails to meet the without undue delay principle often found in data protection and financial services regulations. It also deprives stakeholders of crucial early awareness, hindering their ability to take mitigating actions and potentially leading to reputational damage and increased regulatory scrutiny. Another incorrect approach is to provide only high-level summaries without sufficient detail, even when specific information is available. This can lead to misinterpretations, inadequate risk assessments, and an inability to conduct thorough post-incident reviews. Regulatory frameworks often require detailed records of incidents, including the nature of the breach, affected parties, and remedial actions taken. A third incorrect approach is to communicate incident details indiscriminately to all employees without considering the sensitivity of the information or the need-to-know principle. This can lead to panic, misinformation, and potential compromise of ongoing investigations or sensitive data. Effective crisis communication requires tailored messaging for different audiences. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the regulatory landscape. Identify all applicable reporting obligations and timelines based on the organization's industry and jurisdiction. 2. Developing clear protocols. Establish documented procedures for incident identification, classification, reporting, and communication, including escalation paths. 3. Prioritizing timely notification. Emphasize the importance of immediate reporting for critical incidents, even if preliminary, to meet regulatory deadlines. 4. Ensuring comprehensive reporting. Mandate detailed and accurate reporting that includes all necessary information for effective analysis and remediation. 5. Implementing tiered communication. Tailor communication strategies to different stakeholder groups, ensuring appropriate levels of detail and sensitivity are maintained. 6. Regular review and training. Periodically review and update reporting protocols and provide ongoing training to relevant personnel. Question 10. Research into the ethical responsibilities of a certified security director, CSD, reveals a client requesting the CSD to implement a surveillance strategy that, while technically feasible, appears to be designed to gather information for a purpose that could be construed as discriminatory or an invasion of privacy, exceeding reasonable security needs. The client insists on proceeding without further justification. Which of the following represents the most ethically and legally sound approach for the CSD? Option A. Politely but firmly refuse the request, explaining that the proposed surveillance strategy may violate privacy laws and ethical guidelines for security professionals, and offer to develop an alternative, compliant security plan that addresses legitimate security concerns. Option B. Attempt to subtly modify the surveillance plan to be less intrusive, hoping the client will not notice the changes while still fulfilling the core of their request. Option C. Immediately terminate the client relationship without explanation, as the request is clearly problematic. Option D. Proceed with the surveillance as requested by the client, assuming the client has legal grounds for their request and that the CSD's role is solely to execute directives. The correct answer is A. Politely but firmly refuse the request, explaining that the proposed surveillance strategy may violate privacy laws and ethical guidelines for security professionals, and offer to develop an alternative, compliant security plan that addresses legitimate security concerns. Explanation. This scenario presents a significant challenge for a certified security director, CSD, due to the inherent conflict between a client's directive and established ethical and legal obligations. The CSD must navigate the pressure to comply with a client's potentially unethical or illegal request while upholding their professional responsibilities. The core of the challenge lies in balancing client relationships with the duty to act with integrity and within the bounds of the law. The correct approach involves a principled stance that prioritizes ethical conduct and legal compliance over immediate client satisfaction. This means clearly communicating the limitations imposed by ethical codes and relevant regulations, and offering alternative compliance solutions. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principles expected of security professionals, which often include honesty, integrity, and a commitment to lawful conduct. Specifically, in the U.S. context, this would involve adherence to principles of professional conduct often found in industry standards and potentially state licensing requirements for security professionals, which universally condemn aiding or abetting illegal activities or engaging in deceptive practices. The CSD's duty is to protect the client's interests within legal and ethical boundaries, not to facilitate or conceal wrongdoing. An incorrect approach would be to blindly follow the client's directive without question. This demonstrates a severe lack of ethical judgment and a failure to understand the CSD's professional obligations. Such compliance could expose the CSD and their organization to legal repercussions, reputational damage, and professional sanctions. It represents a dereliction of duty to uphold professional standards and could be construed as complicity in unethical or illegal acts, violating core tenets of professional conduct that demand integrity and adherence to law. Another incorrect approach is to attempt to subtly circumvent the client's request without direct confrontation, perhaps by delaying or providing incomplete information. While seemingly less confrontational, this approach still fails to address the ethical breach head-on. It can lead to misunderstandings, erode trust, and ultimately still result in the CSD being perceived as uncooperative or untrustworthy if the underlying ethical issue is not resolved transparently. It also fails to educate the client on appropriate security practices and legal boundaries. A third incorrect approach involves immediately terminating the relationship without attempting to find a compliant solution or educate the client. While severing ties with an unethical client is sometimes necessary, an immediate termination without any attempted dialogue or offering alternatives can be seen as unprofessional and a missed opportunity to uphold ethical standards through guidance. A more professional approach would involve a reasoned explanation of why the request cannot be fulfilled, and an offer to assist within ethical and legal parameters. Professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Understanding the request and its implications. Clearly identify the client's request and assess its ethical and legal ramifications. 2. Consulting ethical codes and regulations. Refer to the CSD's professional code of conduct and relevant laws and regulations. 3. Communicating concerns. Clearly and professionally articulate the ethical or legal concerns to the client. 4. Proposing compliant alternatives. Offer alternative solutions that meet the client's underlying needs without violating ethical or legal standards. 5. Documenting the interaction. Maintain thorough records of the communication and decisions made. 6. Escalating if necessary. If the client insists on an unethical or illegal course of action, consider escalating the issue internally or, as a last resort, terminating the relationship professionally. Question 11. The performance metrics show that 98% of employees have completed the mandatory annual security awareness training module. However, recent phishing simulation tests indicate a slight increase in click-through rates on simulated malicious links, and the number of reported security incidents related to human error has remained stagnant over the past quarter. As the Certified Security Director, which approach to evaluating and improving the security awareness program is most professionally responsible and ethically sound. Option A. Report the 98% completion rate as a success to senior management, emphasizing the high participation, and recommend a further reduction in the training budget for the next cycle to demonstrate cost efficiency. Option B. Conduct a survey asking employees if they found the training useful and use the aggregated positive responses as justification for the program's effectiveness while maintaining the current training delivery method. Option C. Acknowledge the stagnant incident rates but attribute them to external factors and continue with the current training module, as high completion rates indicate sufficient compliance. Option D. Focus on refining the training content to address specific areas of weakness identified in the phishing simulations and incident reports, and implement a more diverse evaluation methodology that includes post-training knowledge checks and behavioral observation. Correct answer is D. Focus on refining the training content to address specific areas of weakness identified in the phishing simulations and incident reports, and implement a more diverse evaluation methodology that includes post-training knowledge checks and behavioral observation. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma for a certified security director, CSD, tasked with developing and implementing security awareness training. The challenge lies in balancing the need for effective, engaging training with the pressure to demonstrate immediate, quantifiable results, potentially at the expense of long-term behavioral change and compliance. The CSD must navigate the ethical obligation to provide comprehensive and impactful training that genuinely enhances the organization's security posture, while also meeting performance expectations that might be narrowly defined or misaligned with true security objectives. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both compliant with regulatory frameworks and ethically sound, ensuring the training program serves its intended purpose without compromising integrity or effectiveness. The correct approach involves a holistic evaluation of training effectiveness that goes beyond simple completion rates. This includes assessing actual behavioral changes, understanding of security principles, and the program's impact on reducing security incidents. This aligns with the ethical responsibility of a CSD to ensure the organization is adequately protected, and with regulatory expectations that training programs should lead to demonstrable improvements in security practices and compliance. Focusing on a multifaceted evaluation, including phishing simulation results, incident reporting trends, and employee feedback, provides a more accurate picture of the training's success and allows for continuous improvement, fulfilling the CSD's duty of care. An approach that prioritizes only the number of employees who completed the training, without verifying comprehension or behavioral change, is ethically flawed because it creates a false sense of security. This superficial metric fails to meet the spirit of regulatory requirements, which mandate effective training, not just attendance. It also represents a failure in professional duty by not ensuring the training is actually achieving its intended security outcomes. An approach that focuses solely on reducing the cost of the training program, even if it means sacrificing the quality or depth of the content, is also ethically problematic. Security awareness training is a critical investment in protecting organizational assets and data. Cutting corners on quality to save money can lead to inadequate knowledge transfer, leaving employees vulnerable to threats and the organization exposed to breaches, which is a dereliction of the CSD's responsibility. An approach that relies exclusively on anecdotal feedback from a small, self-selected group of employees, without broader, objective measurement, is insufficient and potentially misleading. While feedback is valuable, it is not a substitute for rigorous, data-driven evaluation of training effectiveness. This approach risks overlooking systemic issues or failing to identify areas where training is not resonating or being applied, thus failing to meet the professional standard of comprehensive assessment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the core objectives of the security awareness program, which are to foster a security-conscious culture and reduce risk. 2. Identifying relevant regulatory requirements and ethical obligations pertaining to training and awareness. 3. Defining a comprehensive set of key performance indicators, KPI, that measure not just participation but also comprehension, behavioral change, and impact on security incidents. 4. Selecting training methodologies that are engaging, relevant, and tailored to different audience needs. 5. Implementing a robust evaluation framework that uses a variety of data sources to assess effectiveness. 6. Continuously iterating and improving the program based on evaluation results and evolving threat landscapes. Question 12. Comparative studies suggest that the design and implementation of access control systems in regulated financial institutions can be approached in several ways. As a certified security director, CSD, for a U.S.-based bank, you are tasked with upgrading the organization's access control mechanisms to enhance security and ensure compliance with relevant U.S. regulations. Considering the need to protect sensitive customer data and maintain operational efficiency, which of the following approaches represents the most prudent and compliant strategy for designing, implementing, and managing access control systems? Option A. Implement a phased rollout of a comprehensive access control system, beginning with a detailed risk assessment to identify critical assets and high-risk access points, and then progressively expanding controls based on the assessment findings and operational impact. Option B. Deploy a universal, high-security access control system across all departments and physical locations immediately to ensure maximum protection, regardless of specific departmental risks or operational workflows. Option C. Establish an access control system that relies primarily on employee self-reporting for access requests and incident notifications, with minimal administrative oversight to streamline processes. Option D. Prioritize the implementation of the most convenient and cost-effective access control solutions, even if they offer a lower level of security, to improve user experience and reduce immediate expenditure. The correct answer is A. Implement a phased rollout of a comprehensive access control system, beginning with a detailed risk assessment to identify critical assets and high-risk access points, and then progressively expanding controls based on the assessment findings and operational impact. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for a certified security director, CSD, in a U.S.-regulated financial institution. The core difficulty lies in balancing the imperative for robust security controls, mandated by regulations like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, and the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS, with the operational needs of employees and the cost-effectiveness of the implemented solutions. The CSD must navigate a complex landscape of compliance requirements, technological capabilities, and business objectives, all while ensuring the protection of sensitive customer data. The decision-making process requires a deep understanding of both the technical aspects of access control and the legal and ethical obligations of the organization. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation strategy that prioritizes critical assets and high-risk access points, followed by a comprehensive risk assessment to inform the rollout of broader access controls. This aligns with the principles of risk management embedded within U.S. financial regulations. For instance, GLBA Safeguards Rule requires financial institutions to develop, implement, and maintain a comprehensive information security program that includes administrative, technical, and physical safeguards. A phased approach, guided by risk assessment, ensures that resources are allocated effectively to address the most significant threats first, demonstrating due diligence and a proactive security posture. This also allows for iterative refinement of policies and procedures based on real-world performance and user feedback, minimizing disruption and maximizing the effectiveness of the access control system. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes the protection of customer data while acknowledging operational realities. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing a universal, high-security access control system across all departments and physical locations without a prior risk assessment is an incorrect approach. This is because it fails to adhere to the principle of proportionality and risk-based security mandated by regulations. Such an approach could lead to unnecessary costs, operational inefficiencies, and employee frustration, potentially undermining overall security by creating workarounds. It also fails to demonstrate a targeted and efficient allocation of security resources, which is a key expectation under regulatory frameworks. Implementing a system that relies solely on employee self-reporting for access changes and incident reporting, without robust administrative controls and audit trails, is also incorrect. This approach significantly increases the risk of unauthorized access and data breaches, as it lacks the necessary oversight and verification mechanisms. Regulations like PCI DSS and GLBA require strong access control policies, including the principle of least privilege and regular review of access rights, which are not adequately supported by a self-reporting model. The absence of audit trails makes it impossible to investigate security incidents effectively, a critical compliance requirement. Adopting a system that prioritizes convenience and ease of access over security, even if it appears to be a cost-saving measure, is fundamentally flawed. This directly contravenes the core tenets of information security regulations, which place the protection of sensitive data as paramount. Such an approach would expose the institution to significant legal, financial, and reputational risks, including substantial fines and loss of customer trust. It demonstrates a failure to uphold the fiduciary duty to protect customer information. Professional reasoning. A CSD should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with understanding the regulatory landscape and identifying critical assets and sensitive data. This should be followed by a thorough risk assessment to identify potential threats and vulnerabilities. Based on this assessment, a layered security strategy should be developed, incorporating both physical and logical access controls, with a clear emphasis on the principle of least privilege. Implementation should be phased, prioritizing high-risk areas and allowing for continuous monitoring, evaluation, and adaptation. Regular audits and reviews of access logs and policies are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. This systematic approach ensures that security measures are proportionate to the risks, compliant with regulations, and supportive of business objectives. Question 13. Stakeholder feedback indicates that the current business continuity plans are outdated and may not adequately address emerging cyber threats. The Certified Security Director, CSD, is tasked with initiating a business impact analysis, BIA, to update these plans. However, several key business units are pushing for immediate implementation of new operational processes that they believe will enhance efficiency. But these changes have not been fully assessed for their potential impact on critical business functions or their integration with existing security protocols. The CSD is under pressure to approve these operational changes quickly to meet aggressive business targets. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical responsibilities of a certified security director in this situation? Option A. Prioritize the approval of operational changes that offer the most immediate efficiency gains, and conduct a limited BIA focusing only on the most critical, pre-identified business functions. Option B. Proceed with the comprehensive business impact analysis, BIA, as the foundational step, communicating to stakeholders that operational changes cannot be approved until their potential impacts on business continuity and security are fully understood and documented through the BIA process. Option C. Delegate the BIA process to the business units requesting the operational changes, allowing them to determine the scope and depth of the analysis based on their perceived needs. Option D. Approve the proposed operational changes immediately to demonstrate responsiveness to business needs, and then conduct a post-implementation BIA to assess the impact of these new processes. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the comprehensive business impact analysis, BIA, as the foundational step, communicating to stakeholders that operational changes cannot be approved until their potential impacts on business continuity and security are fully understood and documented through the BIA process. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it pits the immediate need for operational continuity against the long-term strategic imperative of robust security posture, all within the confines of a specific regulatory framework. The Certified Security Director, CSD, must balance the perceived urgency of business demands with the foundational requirements of a business impact analysis, BIA, that is both compliant and effective. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting and applying the relevant regulations to a situation where stakeholders are pushing for expediency that might compromise thoroughness. The correct approach involves prioritizing the completion of a comprehensive BIA, even if it means temporarily delaying certain non-critical operational adjustments. This is because a BIA is a foundational element of a sound security program, mandated by regulatory frameworks to ensure that the organization understands its critical functions, the potential impacts of disruptions, and the resources required for recovery. A thorough BIA directly informs the development of effective business continuity and disaster recovery plans, which are themselves subject to regulatory scrutiny. Failing to conduct a proper BIA can lead to inadequate planning, increased risk exposure, and non-compliance with regulations that require demonstrable risk management and operational resilience. The ethical imperative is to act in the best interest of the organization's long-term security and stability, which is best achieved through diligent adherence to established security processes. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement operational changes based on incomplete BIA findings, or to bypass the BIA process altogether to satisfy immediate stakeholder demands. This would be a regulatory failure because it bypasses a mandated process designed to identify and mitigate risks. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a prioritization of short-term convenience over long-term security and resilience, potentially exposing the organization to greater harm. Another incorrect approach would be to conduct a superficial BIA that only addresses the most obvious impacts, ignoring secondary or cascading effects. This would also be a regulatory failure, as it would not meet the spirit or letter of requirements for a comprehensive assessment of potential impacts. Ethically, It represents a failure to adequately protect the organization's assets and operations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the regulatory requirements for a BIA. The CSD should communicate the importance of the BIA process to stakeholders, explaining how it underpins effective risk management and business continuity. If there are legitimate time constraints, the CSD should propose a phased approach to the BIA, focusing on critical functions first, while still committing to a full assessment. Transparency about the process and its outcomes is crucial. The CSD must advocate for the necessary resources and time to complete the BIA properly, framing it not as a bureaucratic hurdle, but as an essential investment in the organization's resilience. Question 14. Regulatory review indicates that the Certified Security Director, CSD, is responsible for establishing a robust threat intelligence program. Given the increasing volume and sophistication of cyber threats, what is the most effective and compliant approach for the CSD to ensure that gathered threat intelligence is utilized to identify and mitigate potential risks within the organization? Option A. Prioritize the validation, contextualization, and tailored dissemination of threat intelligence to specific stakeholders based on their roles and the intelligence's relevance to their areas of responsibility. Option B. Focus solely on collecting and analyzing technical indicators of compromise IOC, from external feeds to identify and block malicious activity. Option C. Share threat intelligence exclusively with the executive leadership team to ensure high-level awareness and strategic decision-making. Option D. Immediately disseminate all raw, unverified threat intelligence to all relevant departments to ensure maximum awareness of potential threats. The correct answer is D. Immediately disseminate all raw, unverified threat intelligence to all relevant departments to ensure maximum awareness of potential threats. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the Certified Security Director, CSD, to balance the immediate need for actionable threat intelligence with the long-term strategic imperative of building trust and collaboration with external partners. The CSD must navigate the inherent tension between information security, protecting sensitive intelligence, and operational effectiveness, leveraging that intelligence for timely risk mitigation. The pressure to demonstrate immediate value from intelligence investments can lead to shortcuts that undermine future intelligence gathering capabilities. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the pursuit of short-term gains does not compromise the integrity of the intelligence process or the relationships necessary for sustained threat awareness. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured process of validating and contextualizing threat intelligence before disseminating it. This includes cross-referencing information from multiple trusted sources, assessing the reliability and relevance of the intelligence to the organization's specific threat landscape, and then tailoring the communication of actionable insights to relevant internal stakeholders. This approach is justified by the CSD's ethical and professional responsibility to provide accurate, timely, and relevant information that supports informed decision-making. Regulatory frameworks, such as those governing data protection and information sharing, implicitly require due diligence in handling sensitive intelligence to prevent misuse or misinterpretation. By focusing on validation and contextualization, the CSD ensures that the intelligence is not only received, but also understood and acted upon effectively, thereby mitigating risks appropriately and demonstrating responsible stewardship of resources and information. Incorrect approaches analysis. Disseminating raw, unverified intelligence immediately upon receipt is professionally unacceptable. This approach fails to meet the fundamental requirement of providing accurate and reliable information. It risks creating panic, misdirecting resources, and damaging the credibility of the security function if the intelligence proves to be false or irrelevant. Ethically, it is irresponsible to expose the organization to potential harm based on unconfirmed data. Sharing intelligence selectively with only a few senior executives without broader dissemination to relevant operational teams is also professionally flawed. While executive awareness is important, this approach creates information silos and prevents those directly responsible for implementing mitigation strategies from receiving the intelligence they need. This can lead to delayed or ineffective risk mitigation, as operational teams may not be aware of emerging threats or the rationale behind certain security directives. It undermines the collaborative nature of effective security management, focusing solely on the technical indicators of compromise IOC, without considering the broader context of the threat actor's motivations, capabilities, and likely targets is an incomplete approach. While IOCs are crucial for detection and response, understanding the why and how behind an attack is essential for proactive risk assessment and strategic defense. This narrow focus can lead to reactive measures that address symptoms rather than root causes, leaving the organization vulnerable to evolving threats. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes accuracy, relevance, and actionable insight. This involves establishing clear processes for intelligence vetting, including source validation, corroboration, and contextual analysis. The CSD must then develop communication strategies that ensure intelligence is disseminated to the appropriate stakeholders in a timely and understandable manner, facilitating informed risk management decisions. This framework emphasizes a proactive and evidence-based approach to security, aligning with both regulatory expectations and ethical obligations. Question 15. Consider a scenario where a rapidly growing fintech company, operating under UK financial services regulations, needs to update its data security policies to address emerging threats and ensure ongoing compliance with the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA, and Information Commissioner's Office ICO guidelines. The Chief Technology Officer, CTO, proposes immediately adopting a widely recognized, off-the-shelf cybersecurity framework and mandating its strict adherence across all departments, with minimal consultation. The Chief Information Security Officer, CISO, believes a more nuanced approach is necessary. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the CISO professional responsibility and regulatory expectations for developing and implementing effective security policies and procedures in this context? Option A. Conduct a thorough risk assessment specific to the company's operations and data. Engage key stakeholders from IT, legal, compliance, and business units to collaboratively develop tailored policies and procedures, and implement these through phased rollout with comprehensive training and communication. Option B. Delegate the policy development entirely to an external cybersecurity consultancy, instructing them to adapt a pre-existing template to the company's needs without direct internal stakeholder involvement in the drafting process. Option C. Immediately implement a generic, industry-standard cybersecurity framework without modification, requiring all employees to sign an acknowledgement of receipt and understanding, and rely on existing IT infrastructure to enforce compliance. Option D. Focus solely on technical controls and system configurations to enforce security, assuming that robust technology will inherently ensure policy compliance and negate the need for detailed procedural documentation or employee training. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough risk assessment specific to the company's operations and data. Engage key stakeholders from IT, legal, compliance, and business units to collaboratively develop tailored policies and procedures, and implement these through phased rollout with comprehensive training and communication. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for robust security policies with the practical realities of implementation and employee buy-in. A certified security director, CSD, must not only understand the technical aspects of security, but also the human element and the legal/regulatory landscape. The pressure to quickly implement a policy without proper consultation or consideration of existing workflows can lead to ineffective controls, employee resistance, and potential non-compliance with relevant regulations. Careful judgment is required to ensure policies are both comprehensive and actionable. The correct approach involves a structured, collaborative, and iterative process for developing and implementing security policies and procedures. This begins with a thorough risk assessment to identify specific threats and vulnerabilities relevant to the organization's operations and data. Following this, engaging key stakeholders, including IT, legal, HR, and departmental representatives, is crucial. This ensures that policies are practical, address operational needs, and align with legal and regulatory requirements. The development phase should focus on clear, concise language, defining roles and responsibilities, and outlining specific procedures for incident response, data handling, and access control. Pilot testing and phased rollout, coupled with comprehensive training and ongoing communication, are essential for successful adoption and enforcement. This approach aligns with best practices for security management and regulatory compliance, ensuring that policies are not just documented but actively understood and followed, thereby minimizing risk and fostering a security-conscious culture. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on top-down policy creation without stakeholder input fails to account for the practicalities of implementation. This can lead to policies that are unworkable, ignored, or create unintended operational bottlenecks, ultimately undermining security. It also risks overlooking specific regulatory nuances that might be understood better by departmental leads. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness, such as implementing a generic policy without tailoring it to the organization's specific risks and regulatory environment, is also professionally unacceptable. This can result in policies that are either too stringent, hindering operations, or too lax, failing to address critical vulnerabilities. It also demonstrates a lack of due diligence in understanding the organization's unique compliance obligations. A third incorrect approach that neglects to include clear enforcement mechanisms and consequences for noncompliance, or fails to provide adequate training, will likely result in policies that are not consistently followed. This creates a false sense of security and leaves the organization exposed to risks and potential regulatory penalties. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, understand the organizational context and regulatory landscape. Second, conduct a comprehensive risk assessment. Third, engage relevant stakeholders to gather input and ensure buy-in. Fourth, develop clear, actionable, and compliant policies and procedures. Fifth, implement through training and communication. And finally, establish mechanisms for monitoring, enforcement, and continuous improvement. Question 16. Quality control measures reveal that a critical network intrusion detection system, NIDS, is approaching its end of life, with the vendor announcing they will cease all security patch support in 6 months. The CSD must determine the most appropriate course of action to maintain the organization's security posture and comply with relevant regulations. Option A. Continue to operate the existing NIDS beyond its end-of-life date, relying on existing configurations and hoping that no new critical vulnerabilities are discovered that require patching. Option B. Attempt to find third-party, unsupported patches for the end-of-life NIDS to extend its operational life as long as possible. Option C. Immediately procure the most feature-rich and expensive NIDS available on the market to ensure the highest level of security, regardless of the organization's current budget or specific needs. Option D. Initiate a phased replacement plan for the NIDS, beginning with a thorough risk assessment of the current system's vulnerabilities and the impact of its end-of-life status, followed by the selection and implementation of a compliant, next-generation solution that aligns with the organization's security objectives and budget. The correct answer is D. Initiate a phased replacement plan for the NIDS, beginning with a thorough risk assessment of the current system's vulnerabilities and the impact of its end-of-life status, followed by the selection and implementation of a compliant, next-generation solution that aligns with the organization's security objectives and budget. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge for a certified security director, CSD, in ensuring the ongoing effectiveness and compliance of critical security technologies. The professional challenge lies in balancing operational continuity, cost efficiency, and adherence to regulatory mandates when faced with a technology that is nearing its end of life. A CSD must make a strategic decision that mitigates risk without incurring unnecessary expenditure or compromising security posture. The need for careful judgment stems from the potential for security vulnerabilities if the technology is not adequately supported, the financial implications of premature replacement, and the need to align with organizational risk appetite and budget constraints. The correct approach involves a proactive and risk-based strategy. This entails a thorough assessment of the security implications of the end-of-life status, including the availability of security patches, vendor support, and the potential for exploitation of known vulnerabilities. It also requires evaluating the criticality of the technology to the organization's overall security framework and identifying suitable, compliant replacement solutions. This approach aligns with the CSD's responsibility to maintain a robust security posture and comply with regulatory frameworks that mandate the protection of sensitive data and systems. For example, in a U.S. context, regulations like NIST SB 800-53 or PCI DSS, would require organizations to maintain secure systems and address vulnerabilities, which includes managing end-of-life technologies. Proactive planning and phased replacement, informed by a risk assessment, demonstrate due diligence and a commitment to ongoing security. An approach that focuses solely on extending the life of the existing technology without a comprehensive risk assessment is flawed. This could lead to the deployment of unsupported software or hardware, increasing the attack surface and creating significant security gaps. Such a failure to address known vulnerabilities or the lack of vendor support would likely violate regulatory requirements mandating secure system configurations and timely patching. Another incorrect approach is to immediately procure the most advanced, albeit expensive, replacement technology without considering the organization's specific needs, budget, or the integration challenges. While seemingly a robust solution, this can be fiscally irresponsible and may not address the actual risks posed by the end-of-life technology. It bypasses the essential risk assessment and cost-benefit analysis required for prudent technology management and could lead to non-compliance with financial governance policies. Finally, an approach that delays any decision or action, hoping the issue will resolve itself, is the most dangerous. This passive stance directly contravenes the CSD's duty to actively manage security risks. It creates a period of heightened vulnerability, leaving the organization exposed to potential breaches and regulatory penalties. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk management framework. This includes identifying the asset, the security technology, assessing its current state end of life, evaluating the associated risks, vulnerabilities, lack of support, exploring mitigation options, extended support, replacement, compensating controls, and selecting the most appropriate solution based on a combination of risk reduction, cost-effectiveness, and regulatory compliance. Regular review and re-evaluation of the security technology lifecycle are crucial components of this process. Question 17. The investigation demonstrates that a new cloud-based customer relationship management (CRM) system has been implemented, and the Certified Security Director (CSD) is tasked with identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities. The CSD has gathered information on the system's architecture, data flows, and access controls. Which of the following approaches would best fulfill the CSD's responsibility for threat modeling in this context, adhering to U.S. regulatory expectations for risk management? Option A. Rely on the CRM vendor's security documentation and certifications as the sole basis for assessing threats and vulnerabilities without independent analysis. Option B. Focus exclusively on identifying the most technically advanced and sophisticated attack methods reported in recent cybersecurity news, assuming these represent the highest risk to the CRM system. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive threat modeling exercise using a structured methodology like STRIDE, analyzing potential threat actors, attack vectors, and system vulnerabilities, and then prioritizing identified threats based on their likelihood and potential impact to inform mitigation strategies. Option D. Prioritize threat mitigation efforts based on the perceived public relations impact of a potential security incident, rather than a systematic risk assessment. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive threat modeling exercise using a structured methodology like STRIDE, analyzing potential threat actors, attack vectors, and system vulnerabilities, and then prioritizing identified threats based on their likelihood and potential impact to inform mitigation strategies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because a certified security director, CSD, must balance the need for comprehensive threat modeling with the practical constraints of resource allocation and the dynamic nature of security threats. The director must not only identify potential threats and vulnerabilities, but also prioritize them based on their likelihood and impact, ensuring that the most critical risks are addressed effectively within budget and operational limitations. This requires a nuanced understanding of the organization's risk appetite and a strategic approach to security investment. The correct approach involves a structured threat modeling methodology that systematically identifies assets, threats, vulnerabilities, and countermeasures. This aligns with best practices in information security management and is implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that mandate risk assessment and management. For instance, in a U.S. context, frameworks like NIST SB 800-30 Risk Management Guide for information technology systems, and the principles outlined in the Cybersecurity Enhancement Act of 2015 emphasize a proactive, risk-based approach to security. Ethically, a CSD has a duty to protect the organization's assets and data, which necessitates a thorough and well-documented threat modeling process to inform security decisions and demonstrate due diligence. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the most technically sophisticated threats without considering their likelihood or impact fails to meet the practical requirements of risk management. This can lead to misallocation of resources, addressing low-probability, low-impact threats while neglecting more significant risks. Such an approach could be seen as a failure to adhere to the principles of efficient and effective risk management, potentially violating regulatory expectations for prudent security investments. Another incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or past incidents without a systematic analysis of current threat landscapes is also professionally unacceptable. This reactive stance ignores emerging threats and vulnerabilities, leaving the organization exposed. Regulatory frameworks generally expect a forward-looking and comprehensive risk assessment process, not one based on incomplete or outdated information. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes threats based solely on media sensationalism or perceived public opinion, rather than objective risk assessment, demonstrates a lack of professional judgment. While public perception can be a factor, security decisions must be grounded in data and a thorough understanding of the organization's specific threat environment. This can lead to a misdirection of resources and a failure to address the most critical internal and external threats. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the organization's critical assets and business objectives. 2. Employing a recognized threat modeling methodology, e.g., STRIDE, PASTA, DREAD. 3. Assessing the likelihood and impact of identified threats. 4. Prioritizing threats based on a defined risk matrix and the organization's risk appetite. 5. Developing and implementing appropriate countermeasures. 6. Regularly reviewing and updating the threat model to account for changes in the threat landscape and organizational infrastructure. 7. Documenting the entire process for audit and compliance purposes. Question 18. The analysis reveals that a large healthcare organization in the United States is planning to integrate its existing access control system, new high-definition video surveillance cameras, and a centralized intrusion detection and alarm system. The primary goal is to enhance overall security and operational efficiency. As the Certified Security Director, CSD, what is the most critical consideration when planning this technology integration to ensure strict adherence to U.S. regulatory frameworks? Option A. Ensuring the integrated system provides real-time alerts and comprehensive data logging for all security events, with a focus on meeting HIPAA and relevant state data privacy laws. Option B. Prioritizing the technical capabilities and ease of use for security personnel, assuming compliance will be addressed later. Option C. Selecting the most cost-effective hardware and software solutions that offer advanced features for each individual security technology. Option D. Implementing the new systems with minimal disruption to current operations, deferring any regulatory compliance checks to a post-implementation audit. The correct answer is A. Ensuring the integrated system provides real-time alerts and comprehensive data logging for all security events, with a focus on meeting HIPAA and relevant state data privacy laws. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for certified security directors, CSD, in the United States, integrating disparate security technologies while ensuring compliance with a complex web of federal and state regulations. The challenge lies in balancing operational effectiveness, cost efficiency, and the paramount requirement of regulatory adherence. A CSD must not only understand the technical capabilities of each system, but also their implications for data privacy, incident reporting, and interoperability under relevant U.S. laws. Failure to do so can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and compromised security posture. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment of existing and proposed security technologies against the specific requirements of relevant U.S. regulations, such as the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA. If health data is involved, the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS, for financial data, and state-specific data breach notification laws. This approach prioritizes a holistic view, ensuring that the integration of access control, video surveillance, intrusion detection, and alarm systems creates a cohesive security framework that is not only technically sound but also legally compliant. It necessitates understanding how data from each system is collected, stored, accessed, and protected, and ensuring these processes align with legal mandates regarding privacy, retention, and auditability. For instance, video surveillance footage containing personally identifiable information, PI, must be handled in accordance with privacy regulations, and access control logs must be maintained to meet audit requirements. Incorrect approaches analysis, prioritizing cost savings above all else, without a thorough regulatory compliance review is a significant failure. This approach risks implementing systems that may be cheaper, but do not meet legal standards for data protection, access control logging, or incident reporting, leading to potential fines and legal liabilities. Focusing solely on the technical capabilities and perceived effectiveness of each individual security technology, without considering their integration and the aggregated data's regulatory implications, is another failure. This siloed thinking can result in a system where components are technically advanced but collectively create compliance gaps, particularly concerning data privacy and intersystem data sharing. Adopting a set it and forget it mentality after initial installation, without ongoing review and updates to account for evolving technologies and regulatory changes, is also professionally unacceptable. Security and regulatory landscapes are dynamic. CSD has an ongoing responsibility to ensure systems remain compliant and effective, which requires periodic reassessment and adaptation. Professional reasoning. A CSD's decision-making process should begin with a thorough understanding of the organization's operational environment and the specific regulatory landscape it operates within. This involves identifying all applicable U.S. federal and state laws and industry standards. The next step is to conduct a risk assessment that evaluates how each security technology and their integration impacts compliance. This assessment should consider data privacy, data security, incident response, and auditability. The CSD should then develop an integration strategy that prioritizes compliance, followed by operational effectiveness and cost. Regular audits and reviews are crucial to ensure continued adherence to regulations and to adapt to technological advancements and legal updates. Question 19. Governance review demonstrates that the recent cyber attack, which caused significant operational disruption, highlighted several deficiencies in the organization's emergency response procedures (ERP) and business continuity plan (BCP). The CSD is tasked with optimizing these processes to enhance resilience. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and professional best practices for a certified security director in the UK? Option A. Conduct a thorough post-incident analysis to identify specific failures and successes, then systematically update the BCP and ERP to incorporate these lessons learned, ensuring alignment with current UK regulatory requirements for operational resilience and information security, and subsequently test the revised plans. Option B. Implement a series of cost-saving measures across the security department, including reducing the frequency of BCP testing and training to offset the expenses incurred during the recent incident, while making only minor, superficial adjustments to the existing plans. Option C. Immediately focus resources on restoring all affected systems to their pre-incident state, deferring any formal review or update of the BCP and ERP until the organization has fully recovered and is operating normally. Option D. Rely on the experience and informal knowledge of key personnel to manage future disruptions, assuming that their past handling of incidents provides sufficient preparedness without the need for formal documentation updates or extensive retraining. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough post-incident analysis to identify specific failures and successes, then systematically update the BCP and ERP to incorporate these lessons learned, ensuring alignment with current UK regulatory requirements for operational resilience and information security, and subsequently test the revised plans. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a certified security director, CSD, to balance immediate operational needs with long-term strategic resilience, all while adhering to specific regulatory mandates. The pressure to restore services quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise the integrity of the business continuity plan, BCP, and emergency response procedures, potentially exposing the organization to greater risks in future incidents. Careful judgment is required to ensure that immediate actions align with, rather than undermine, the established framework. The correct approach involves a systematic review and update of the BCP and ERP based on lessons learned from the recent disruption. This process optimization focuses on identifying weaknesses, incorporating new threat intelligence, and ensuring alignment with current regulatory requirements. Specifically, under UK regulations such as the Financial Services and Markets Act 2000 FSMA and associated FCA/PRA handbooks, e.g. CISC 10A for operational resilience, organizations are mandated to have robust BCP and incident management frameworks. The Information Security Forum, ISF, Standard of Good Practice for Information Security, also provides guidance on business continuity and disaster recovery. A systematic review ensures that the organization's resilience capabilities meet these regulatory expectations for operational resilience and the ability to prevent, respond to, recover from, and learn from operational disruptions. This approach prioritizes continuous improvement and regulatory compliance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate restoration without a comprehensive review risks perpetuating existing vulnerabilities. This fails to meet the spirit and letter of regulatory requirements for ongoing risk assessment and adaptation of resilience plans. For instance, neglecting to update the ERP based on the specific nature of the recent incident could mean that critical communication channels or evacuation procedures remain inadequate for similar future events, violating the duty of care and potentially leading to noncompliance with the health and safety at work, etc. Act 1974, another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost-cutting over thorough plan updates, would be professionally unacceptable. While financial prudence is important, it cannot come at the expense of regulatory compliance and organizational safety. The UK's Corporate Governance Code emphasizes that directors have a duty to promote the success of the company, which includes ensuring its long-term viability and resilience. Ignoring necessary updates to BCP/ERP due to cost constraints could be seen as a failure to uphold this duty, and could lead to significant financial and reputational damage if a similar incident occurs. A further incorrect approach that relies on ad hoc decision-making during the recovery phase, without formalizing lessons learned into the BCP/ERP, bypasses the structured approach required for effective process optimization and regulatory adherence. This reactive rather than proactive stance undermines the principles of good governance and operational resilience, leaving the organization exposed to repeated failures and potential regulatory sanction. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured post-incident review, a gap analysis against current regulatory requirements and best practices, and a phased approach to updating BCP and ERP documentation and training. This should be followed by rigorous testing and validation of the updated plans before they are fully implemented. Question 20. To address the challenge of a confirmed critical data breach impacting customer personal information, what is the most appropriate initial course of action for a certified security director to ensure compliance with regulatory frameworks and ethical obligations while effectively managing the incident? Option A. Delay all internal reporting and external communication until a complete forensic analysis of the incident is finalized, regardless of potential notification deadlines. Option B. Focus exclusively on technical eradication of the threat and restoration of systems, deferring any communication or notification until the technical resolution is complete. Option C. Immediately initiate a comprehensive containment strategy to limit the breach's scope, followed by a methodical eradication and recovery process, while concurrently assessing the incident's impact for timely regulatory notification and stakeholder communication. Option D. Publicly announce the breach to all affected customers and media outlets as soon as the initial confirmation is received to ensure transparency. The correct answer is C. Immediately initiate a comprehensive containment strategy to limit the breach's scope, followed by a methodical eradication and recovery process, while concurrently assessing the incident's impact for timely regulatory notification and stakeholder communication. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because a security director must balance the immediate need to contain a critical data breach with the long-term implications for customer trust, regulatory compliance, and business continuity. The pressure to act swiftly can lead to hasty decisions that may overlook crucial steps, potentially exacerbating the incident or leading to noncompliance. The director must also manage communication with various stakeholders, each with different priorities and levels of technical understanding. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured, phased response aligned with established incident response frameworks, such as those implicitly or explicitly referenced by CSD-level certifications and common industry best practices. This typically includes 1. Incident identification, confirming the nature and scope of the incident. 2. Containment, limiting the spread and impact of the incident. 3. Eradication, removing the cause of the incident. 4. Recovery, restoring affected systems and data to normal operations. 5. Post-incident analysis, learning from the incident to improve future defenses and responses. This methodical approach ensures that all critical aspects are addressed, minimizing damage and facilitating a robust recovery. From a regulatory perspective, adherence to such a framework is often a de facto requirement for demonstrating due diligence and compliance with data protection laws, e.g., GDPR if the jurisdiction were EU, or relevant U.S. state breach notification laws if U.S. Ethically, it demonstrates a commitment to protecting customer data and maintaining operational integrity. Incorrect approaches analysis, an approach that prioritizes immediate public disclosure without a thorough understanding of the incident's scope and impact, is ethically and regulatorily flawed. Such premature disclosure can cause undue panic, damage reputation, and potentially alert adversaries to the ongoing investigation, hindering containment efforts. It fails to meet the regulatory requirement of providing accurate and timely information, which is often contingent on having a clear picture of the breach. An approach that focuses solely on technical eradication without considering the impact on affected individuals or the business's ability to operate is also problematic. This overlooks the recovery phase and the critical need for communication and remediation for those impacted, which are often mandated by regulations and are essential for ethical data stewardship. An approach that delays reporting to internal stakeholders or regulatory bodies until all technical aspects are resolved can lead to significant regulatory penalties. Many jurisdictions have strict timelines for breach notification, and failure to adhere to these can result in fines and legal repercussions, regardless of the eventual success of the technical response. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based, phased incident response methodology. This involves establishing clear roles and responsibilities, a communication plan, and a decision-making hierarchy before an incident occurs. During an incident, the focus should be on systematic containment, eradication, and recovery, with concurrent efforts to assess regulatory notification requirements and stakeholder communication needs. Post-incident analysis is crucial for continuous improvement and demonstrating a mature security posture. The decision-making process should always weigh immediate tactical needs against strategic, regulatory, and ethical obligations.